Hi guys, welcome back to Bob and Mr.D. Bob,
Oh, you
we've got a very special guest today.
the greatest of all time.
A friend that I've had for many, many years. He's passionate about photography, but mostly urban landscape photography, which to me, if you ask me, is more challenging than the normal landscapes people do. Anton Bosman, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, guys. How are you, Bob?
Good things he's on.
Good.
So Anton, let's start at the very beginning. Where did you get into the photography world? What sparked you to get into it?
So I was getting into my first year of studying, looking for a part-time job to pay for my hobby, which was cycling. And I saw this advert in the newspaper, Germiston newspaper, guy looking for somebody who could work with his hands, woodworking. So I called the guy up and he said, come and see me. He hopped on the bus, went from Sunny Ridge down to Germiston, walked in and he took me into this like little empty room and he said, I want to build a dark room here. Can you work with your hands?
Very cool.
And I was like, yes, I can. You know, I genuinely can. And I was excited. He said, well, I want to build a darkroom. And we built the darkroom. I can't remember how long it took. It was probably about 3-4 weeks. And he said to me, have you ever developed any photographs? I said, no, I've never done that. He said, I'll teach you. I'm like, cool, I'll take that as long as it pays, you know. So, so I took the job and yeah, and then so I started developing photographs for these guys. It was all black and white at that stage, and then they got into the color. And they were doing big postcards of houses for their estate agents. So they'd go out, take a photograph of the house, and then have all these little lines next to the picture of the house on the same postcard, all in gloss. And then it would have the details of the house, the square meterage, the bedrooms and whatever, toilets, bathrooms. And he gave me a camera the one day and he said to me, look, there's 24 film in here that take 24 photos. You come back with less than 20, you buy a new film. I was like, cool, give it to me. I'm willing to take up the challenge. And I kind of enjoyed that, but never really took off to photography. But that never leaves your mind, does it? You know, like it sticks with you, it stays there.
It's a seed that grows inside.
It grows inside, you know, and then years later I had kids. And as you know, I called you, Dimitri, a great photographer.
Great.
And I said, I need a camera and you're the only guy that I think who can help me here. And I remember it vividly now. I was still in Penny Lane.
Yes.
And you brought me a 50D. It was the first one.
Canon 50D. Yes.
You brought the 5D Mark II you brought to me
That
in
was
Crowthorne.
correct.
Yeah. And so Dimitri brought me a Canon 50D. I looked at this and I was like, this is a spaceship, man. I said, what do I do with this thing? He says, no, you should know. F-stop, aperture, shutter speed. That's all you need to know. So I was quite like taken back, and it's overwhelming. I mean, digital camera, when you look at it for the first time, it's overwhelming.
Too
right?
many settings, too many
There's a
things
lot
to
going on.
Then you get to a point where you simplify it, which we'll see in my work a bit later, which is exactly what I've done. Thanks to that advice, because then I started thinking back of what I did with those real estate photographs, and I thought, okay, it's actually not that daunting.
Yeah.
And, you know, we, as a family, my wife, my kids, we used to go into town a lot, go to the museums, galleries. I just loved it. I loved Joburg and the history of it and the architecture. And I took the camera with one day and I took some photographs of buildings and I just got completely hooked. And so you start taking photos and you start sharing them and people go, oh, it's a nice photograph, and you're feeling super proud of yourself.
And then you want to do more.
And then you look at it and you go, but it's not actually that good. You know, you look at it 3 weeks later. You look at it 3 weeks later and you think, oh, it's actually not that good. It's really actually quite shocking, you know. And I just
You're a bit of a perfectionist with your images. I can see that.
I definitely, because what I then, thanks to the internet, you know, if we still had to go to libraries, it'd be tough. So thanks to the internet, I just started studying photographs. That's exactly what I did. I found some of the top urban photographers, top landscape guys, and I just looked at their photos. So what I mean by studying their photos, it's like I would stare at their photo for minutes and minutes and minutes on end.
Understand what's really cool.
Trying to understand what they've done, trying to understand the composition, how do they capture the light, what makes me look at this photograph.
What makes you like it?
Exactly, and then the rules of composition, you find that on the internet. And I started applying those by myself. I just thought, you know what, rule of thirds is there for a reason.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. And the Fibonacci
100%. That even so much more. And I think that comes into play much more than we realize in our work.
Even without noticing, because it's actually a part of nature.
Yes.
And subliminally, it works in everything you look at.
Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so for me, the challenge in the beginning was that I realized that, okay, getting the skill and the ability to take a good photo is understanding the camera. That's the start. But developing that feel, that hunger, that passion for composition and immediately getting that feel, that's a learning curve.
That's why I always say, in the camera world, you get photographers and you get camera operators.
Yes.
There's a very big difference there.
Yeah.
That's so powerful. And I sat and looked at this and I thought, what can I do to develop myself? So I got to the realization that you can get one of two types of people. You can get people that can learn it all, and they will take kind of okay photographs. And I know many photographers like that. To this day, they take photographs and you just know it's theirs because the angle's always the same. They haven't really thought it out. Their work is good. Pictures are good. The light's good. Their post-processing is good. But the feel is not there. And when I do lectures with guys, I tell them, think about any cell phone image you've seen that takes your breath away. The picture is horrible. It's murky. It's messy. The colors aren't what you think it should be. But the picture takes your breath away because the composition pulls you in. That's what it does. And I realized very quickly that you could either have pure talent, you could be like a Van Gogh on a camera and just have that ability, learn it and then develop that ability, or just be the kind of person that learn how to do all the other technical stuff but never develop that ability. And then I got to a point where I thought, can I develop this ability? And one thing hit me so hard. So I was in grade 3, well, which is now, back in our day, was standard 1, right?
Standard 1, I think.
Standard
Yes.
1, I think, yeah. And I was in school in Durban, and we had a sketch competition. And I drew a line of trees. The theme was perspective. And I drew this line of trees that I saw in Sadara, and I thought, okay, that's what I'm going to draw. And it won the competition.
This is before you even touch the camera.
Before I even touched the camera.
You already
So
had
it
it
started long.
I thought back on that and I thought, maybe I have it because, when you grow up, you start questioning yourself. What talents do I have? And a lot of people actually never develop anything inside of them because they undervalue themselves or they don't believe in themselves. And I remember doing a talk it was at Kailami at the Photo and Film Expo, and I played the song by Supertramp, the Logical song. And it's when I was young, life was so wonderful, And then I went to school and they teach you how to be sensible. And that's exactly what happened. So here I am in standard 1, drawing this with no inhibitions. And then as you go grade 4, grade 5, and you move along, they bring you more and more and more down and they put you into a box. Correct. And they tell you, you can't sing, you can't do this, so you must be on the rugby team. Meantime, I believe every single person on this planet is a creative being. How they develop that is a different story. And I sat and looked at this and I thought, okay, maybe I can develop my creative ability and do something special.
And how was that process?
So we're going to get to that when we talk about the images. I think you'd enjoy that.
While you're talking about, let's get into this first image that I've got here, and talking about style and a unique look. Your stuff, I can see, if I see any of your stuff on the internet somewhere, I'll know it's yours because you have a unique style about how you shoot, your angles, your lighting. I love the dark areas.
Yes.
It reminds me of Japanese photographers where they leave dead space because it enhances the feel of looking at it. So let's get into this first one, this black and white image here. Can you tell us a little bit more about this one?
So that's the Rand Club in Johannesburg, as you guys might know. And having gone in and out of town very often, I know what time of the year the light falls a certain way and what time of the day for that particular time of the year. And this was 2 weeks ago. I had to take the Benoni Photo Club on a walk, and they asked me what dates, and what I always do, I look at the weather app first, and I'm like, okay, there might be some cloud on that day. If it's all blue skies, then I know, okay, well, I'm going to do this kind of photograph, but the rest of the guys would struggle. because what the clouds do, they give you a natural scrim. So you always get this light coming through, but when you have this harsh blue light, you've got to really know what you're doing with the dynamic range on the camera. And I took the guys out. It was just a great day. You can see the clouds in the background.
They work perfectly.
They work perfectly. And obviously, I let the guys walk away. I let them all take their shot, let them walk away. And I'd already had my shot lined up. And the light just hit the building perfectly. All these, you see there's the way the light fell on the building. And so what I tend to do with an image like this, just one other thing, you'll notice that it's in portrait orientation. And so just to go back what I was saying earlier, is looking at other people's work. The one thing I said to myself, I'll learn from these guys, I'll take from what they do, but I don't want to become any of them.
You want to be different.
I want to become myself.
Yeah.
So one of the things I decided to do a couple of years ago was to not get distortion on the buildings and to get the buildings into a full frame and look good. I'm going to try portrait orientation. And the response to that from people, just on print alone, was out of this world. It went completely berserk. And I realized it's what we used to that we become accustomed to fairly quickly. And it's what we're not used to that is out of the norm that we lose interest in quite quick. So you'll get people that take photographs of buildings with a fisheye lens, and immediately you go, wow. And then after like 2 or 3 times seeing the same image, you're like, oh, okay, you know.
Yeah.
So the eye sees angles dead straight. So for me, it was empirical and very important to have all the angles of the buildings as the eye would see them naturally. But I also said to myself, one thing the eye is not used to is seeing a landscape photograph in portrait orientation. What can that be? And that's when I decided I'm going to make portraits out of buildings. If a guy can do it in a studio, why can't we do it outside? And you don't need somebody to stand there with lights, and also you've got the sun.
Yeah.
Go the right time and you've got the sun.
And as you say, you've planned your day ahead.
Plan the day ahead.
Know what to expect, what time, where to stand.
100, and it's become very easy for me because I basically just walk up, take the composition, take the shot. And like on this particular one, I did walk around for about 5-6 minutes to see exactly what's the light doing. The light was moving a bit. I waited for these clouds to actually come over the building. They were a little bit further back because I wanted them in the shot. And I take every single shot with a post-processing in mind. So I know exactly what I want to do. So I knew that it was going to be black and white. I had my f-stop fairly narrow here. I think I was about f12. And then I underexposed. So I exposed mainly for the lights on the building, so that, as you were saying about the Japanese photographers keeping things dark that are dark, a lot of people would want to see the detail in that. For me, dark, because there are other areas in that building that I can show off. And the light is showing off the building more importantly than anything else. So if you look at the light on the foreground over there, that's the way the light fell. And that's, to me, that's beautiful. And then I took this image with the post-processing in mind, knowing that I was going to go black and white, knowing that I wanted a portrait orientation. And then normally my post-editing on something like this would be all done in Lightroom mainly. I will crop to a desired feel. A lot of people say, oh man, what comes out of the camera? You know what? If you're going to make something that you want to print and it must look good, you got to spend a bit of time on it. So.
Yeah, so Anton, I think that the cropping process is part of the whole process of creativity. And you probably shot it knowing that you will crop it somewhere anyway.
Absolutely. You know, unless you're using a tilt shift lens, you're never going to get the angles perfect. And, you know, with the brand that I shoot with, they don't have a tilt shift lens. And I don't want to use something with adapters either. But I often tell guys this, if I do a workshop or a photo walk or whatever, I say, nobody is going to pick up the camera to shoot a scene unless they see something in that scene. Why would you're not just randomly going to pick up a camera and shoot because you're hoping to get, you see something that appeals to you, you want to capture that, and that's what you want to show, right? So for me, it's the cropping is part of the process, and I'll always crop almost to the point of what I exactly wanted, what I envisioned. And my framing would be like that too. Like on this particular building, I could have gone completely and grabbed right to the edge of the building, but there was no nice light there. And I wanted to show the very front of the building and exactly where all the light was. You know, and even the boom kept into the frame, didn't cut that off. And I didn't want to go over that because there were vehicles standing here that just weren't part of the frame. So you frame it beforehand and then go and crop it to what you kind of remembered.
Yeah. Let's get back to, now that you mentioned the equipment that you used on this shot, and I know we discussed you had Canons.
Yes.
What are you shooting on at the moment, and why did you choose that brand?
So I'm shooting with the Fujifilm. And what actually happened was, you remember the critical mass rides in town?
Yes.
So me and the family started doing all these critical mass rides, and I thought, I mean, it's a
We'll
great...
tell the viewers, the critical mass ride is a mass bicycle ride where we used to get up to 1,000 people in town and ride through the streets of town just to create awareness of cyclists. That was critical mass.
It was lovely, eh?
Oh, we enjoyed that. Yeah.
It's like a silent protest, is what they called it. And, you know, to keep the road safe for people on bicycles. So I wanted a smaller, more compact camera, and I went to Cameras in Rosebank, in the old...
When Cameras was in
behind Fornos. And I walked in, and Armani was there that morning. And I said to him, I'm looking for a compact camera. And he said to me, oh, we've got this over here, a little Canon, and this and this and this. He said, but look what we just got in. He took out a Fuji X100.
Nice.
And I said to him, I'll take that. I didn't even ask what it was. I said, I'll take that. He says, but it's not a compact. I said, it's compact enough for me. I bought the camera, and then it was our learning curve for another 2 months after that. But I kind of got quite smitten with it. You know, when you download the images and you see what you're getting out of it, there's like there was, especially with that first X100, there was like an organic feel that made you feel like you're shooting with film. And it's hard to explain. I think that's a 12 megapixel.
Yeah, 12. I think the X100 has become a cult camera. People,
Yes.
I mean, the prices they're going for now.
It's crazy.
It was an investment camera.
Yeah. And so I was kind of taken by it, but it never took the majority of the bulk of my work that I was doing. But I was doing stuff with it. And then I entered a photo competition, SA Markets or something like that. I got a call from Chris Wessels, said to me, hey, come and enter. Like, okay, cool. Okay, he's calling me to enter. Let me enter. Let me take a chance. And I won an XT10. So I got invited down to Durban to do work for the ICC. That was one of the Mandela days with the blankets. So I had to come and do photographs of the buildings and aerial views of the blankets and the whole thing. And sitting in the boardroom, they said, you know, our boardroom's looking quite empty. You know, we'd like a cityscape of Durban at night. Think you can do that? I was like, yeah, I can do that. They said, we'll pay you. I was like, I can definitely do it, you know. Because as you know, photographers, you often get asked to do things for nothing.
Yes, for exposure.
And sometimes they're the most unappreciative people because you've done it for nothing and they expect so much more.
Biggest thing ever.
Biggest
You know, my favorite one is when you've been in the industry for 30 years and they say, please shoot something for us, we'll give you exposure.
Your exposure's on the camera, man. Yeah, and then they took me to a lookout point and they showed me exactly what they wanted, and I was like, okay, this could work, you know. And I went out that night with my little rental car. I got there and I had my Canon out and I had the 10-24 lens, and I was like, okay, let me do this. And there was barbed wire fence that I didn't see I didn't see the barbed wire fence, and I thought, oh, what am I going to do now? And I thought, I've got the XT10 in the car. And I took out a Gorilla Pod. I clamped it around the barbed wire fence, and I framed the shot. And I thought, okay, I'll do a 3-image pano. It should work quite well. Took it, got home. I had my laptop with me. Took me all of maybe 2 minutes to process the whole thing. Combine it, get the highlights, clip a little bit of the highlights, get it just right. But okay, I'll show it to them, and if they want more done, pitch up the next morning, this is what I got. Awesome. Can we print it? I was like, I don't know if this file's big enough. So I exported it. Then I realized that the Fujifilm files, raw images, they got massive files. You know? I didn't realize that. So when I saw the compression rate of it afterwards, I was like, this is a serious camera. This thing can do a lot, eh? And you know, at the top of the Fujifilm, you look at the ones that we're using here, they've got the little shutter button at the top there because they've got the screen. And I still took that shot with an old push button. That's how I took those shots.
So by the way, we're shooting right now on 2 Fuji X-T4s.
Great cameras, eh? Fantastic. And that's how I kind of got hooked. And then I had a bit of an issue with the camera, and I called Fujifilm, and then Barry at Fuji came and collected the camera from me, and he called me and said, listen, your camera is ready, but we actually want to see you. I went in and saw them, and they said, listen, we'd like to work with you. And from there, it's just been Fujifilm, eh? So, and I've gotten so used to it. I love it. And going exactly back to when you dropped off that first camera with me, that's what my Fujifilm cameras do. They do ISO, they do f-stop, which is on my lens, and I do shutter speed. That's it. Nothing else. And raw, all raw, hey?
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's photography. That's time, light.
Yes, exactly.
Let's get back to another image. I don't know how to describe this. It's a phenomenal image with lightning, and it looks like you were on the top of a bridge of a highway. Can you explain to us the story behind this?
So I know Bob's quite interested to hear about this one.
Very interested.
This was over December. Mall of Africa had just been built. And I went to Mall of Africa to go and get some goodies for the family. And I forgot, so it was in summer. And I don't mean to make the listeners cringe, but I wear shorts in the day. And that evening it was quite cool. I mean, you could see the rain was coming. It was going to thunderstorm. So I put on a pair of jeans, but I forgot to put my wallet and any money in my pants. But I had the car keys with me, and my camera, because I knew I was going to take a shot.
No wallet, but camera. Priorities.
So I got to the mall and I walked around and I realized, I don't have my cards. I might as well just have to leave. So when it got to paying for the parking, I was completely stuffed. I had nothing. So I had to call the wife to come and bail me out, which she did, and she wasn't too happy. So I thought, okay, well, I'll send her home to cool down while I go and take some photos. I mean, it's like a great opportunity, you know. And I went right across the road. So this road here comes from Mall of Africa over the highway towards Buccleuch.
Yes.
And I positioned my camera. Now, I'm not a massive fan of lightning photographs, purely for the process that a lot of people take. They take 50, 60, 70, 100 images, stack them all together, and gives you the wow impression. I always had this in my mind for probably about 4 years. Can I capture as many lightning bolts in one frame as possible? So I positioned my camera, I pushed the f-stop up to f22, which is what my lens allows. Now, a lot of people talk about diffraction and all that. No issue with the Fujifilm, nothing whatsoever. I put on a 10-stop ND filter, and I figured out that if I do about a 7 to 8 minute shutter time, I could capture quite a bit of lightning bolts because they were getting quite active. So the shot that you see is exactly 6.5 minutes exposure. Now, quite challenging to balance the white lights on the cars. The red light's not so much of an issue, but to balance the white light. So I basically exposed for cars coming through down at the bottom. So I put the camera on spot and see the cars. So I exposed for one of the spots on the car, the white lights, and that's how I set the exposure for the entire shot.
So it all comes
Unbelievable. What's impressive about this shot is, and as you say, it's not stacked, it's not AI, there's no Photoshop. You caught that with one exposure.
One exposure.
Not many people do that. Not many people know how to do it.
100%. And for those who might doubt it, you can just look at the little starbursts over there. You don't get that if you're at an F4 or F5 or F6, you know.
So, Bob, are you going to be buying an ND filter soon?
very soon, actually.
Yeah,
So my other question is, what? Like, I'm so impressed with the picture. Even the question goes away when I look at it. So when this picture was happening, multiple lightning was striking.
Yes.
Basically.
Yes.
Wow.
And that's the beauty of it, because they don't overexpose, because you're not going to get that lightning strike hitting the same time every single time.
Yeah.
You've got one here, one there.
Yeah.
So when you call it a bit of a luck shot, if you wish, because my exposure happened to be just right for the headlights of the cars, and that was just the right exposure for the lightning bolts too.
I don't often believe in luck, because Gary Player said, the more you practice, the luckier you get. And you've been practicing a long time.
I have, yeah.
So let's go to the next image here. Another beautiful black and white. Stunning urban
shot.
landscape. That building in the middle, is that which?
That's Carlton Centre.
Ah, yes,
Transnet,
I
yeah.
recognize that.
And that plays a pivotal part in this image, actually, because I often take people in and I often go into town, and I've gotten to know the light. And when I talk about it, this has become my most iconic, most sold image. I've got guys overseas who have bought this, put up in their houses. It's insane. And I had this idea of this picture in mind for years. Get the Transnet building exposed by sun, because the sun is setting behind you and it streams down this road and it just lights up that building for about 10, 15 minutes, just long enough for you to be able to get the building exposed enough to get into the shot. And I had this idea where I sat and I said, I'd love to get the two giants of transport in one image. There's always taxis in town, and we got Transnet. And one of the guys that I used to cycle with a lot, who used to be at Imperial, Mike Fanucci, he was the CEO of Transnet, and I said to Mike, I'm going to get this shot, and I think you might like it. And I kept going into town and never got the shot. It's always the wrong time of the day, or there's too many cars or whatever. And it got to a point where I actually sat and I'd grab a piece of paper and draw the image and kind of conceptualize it and go, if I go in June, I know the sun's setting that time, I've got to be there that time, and I can hang around for like a half an hour. So I went out, I had two mates with me, and I was standing in the middle of the road, no tripod, just handheld. And I said, today is the day, I'm going to take the shot. And while I'm standing there, these two police vehicles are coming up towards me. And I'm so concentrated on the shot, and I'm like, I'm not getting out your way. I can see the vehicles coming in my
But you really need to get the shot.
So they were coming towards you from the image we
They were
see.
coming up in this direction. And somebody said something out the window, but they weren't upset. They didn't stop me. I thought, okay, this is the moment. And then I waited for about 3 or 4 taxis to come through. I wanted a white one. So blue, yellow was coming through. I wanted a white one because I knew it was going to be a black and white image. And then this guy came through. And I don't know if he was hitting the brakes or what he was doing. And funny enough, getting his wheel on that white line, I don't know how that happened.
Well, that worked out so well.
I don't know how that happened. That's not Gary Player kind of luck. That was pure luck.
Just touching on, you had 2 friends with you. When you do these shoots, specifically in Johannesburg, how is the safety?
So that's why I'd either go out by myself, or if I know that the city, with this particular shot, it was at a time when the city was a bit more busier on a Sunday. There was a lot of muggings going on. So I took 2 friends with me. So they're also photographers, so we spot each other.
Okay.
So one guy would take the shot. So while I'm standing over here taking the shot, the 2 guys are standing behind me, just making sure that I'm okay. Nobody's coming towards, because don't forget, you're concentrating on the image. Anybody could just come and grab your bag or knock you over the head.
While
or
we're on
whatever
that,
the case may
when
be.
you're composing, do you use the eyepiece or do you use the screen, or do you mix?
I look through the eyepiece.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like me.
I'll use the screen, like you'll see on one of the images just now when I do a reflection. But I'll first go low, look at the eyepiece to see what I can get in, and then work on because also you don't want to distort the angle.
Yeah. Okay. Let's quickly go to the next one.
So this is one of those.
Beautiful reflection. Oh, so here you use the screen.
Yeah, I use
You
the
could
screen.
get low down.
So what I did, I obviously stood and to see if I could frame it all in, then squatted down, see, okay, I can get it, but if I go a bit lower, I can get almost a perfect flip, which is, for me, on reflection shots, is almost what you want to try and get to get the perfect reflection shot, is to get a perfect 360. It just feels very balanced to me.
This is a very haunting image. I don't even see people. Were there any people in this?
Nothing.
But this is the quiet side of town also.
So normally when I do go out for shots like this, I go out on a Sunday afternoon, and the city gets very, very quiet on a Sunday afternoon, specifically this part of town.
Amazing image.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Oh, love the color. The Fuji, hey? The Fuji colors are something different. Something else.
You know what's so interesting about this shot is that I've been conceptualizing this one as well for years and years and years, thinking, I wonder if you'd ever get the sun to just fall at the right time. So whenever you get there, you don't get the sun at the right time, because by the time I'm here, I've got to work my way back so I don't walk back in the dark. And as you could see, there's cloud in the sky this day. And it was just after COVID. So it was when he came, the first time they said, okay, you can now go out into public. People don't understand how clean or clear the sky was that time.
I was just going to say, it's pristine because there's no air pollution,
Nothing.
or actually less. But
The only time I've ever seen skies like that was in Europe, like in Germany, Austria, where the sky is perfectly clean, you know, it's unbelievable. So I went out, I was on my own, and I was rattled, man, because everywhere you went, people were moving around. Guys were sitting right behind me over here. There were guys sitting playing cards with a couple of courts, sharing them amongst each other. And they were shouting quite obscenities at me, you know, and I had my mask on and who knows what not. And I got there and I thought, okay, I'm gonna frame this mosque in the arch, and I'm gonna make the best of the sun that I could do. So the moment I lifted my camera, security guard came to me, said to me, sorry, you can't take photos. So I walked away, said, okay, I'm sorry, I walked away. Now, having already stood there, I knew exactly where I was gonna frame. So right behind there's like a little, like a circular area. So the guard went this direction and I went this direction. And I saw the guard disappear and I quickly walked back. Got my exposure, was just right at the time, took the shot and walked away.
a properly pre-planned shot.
It was. I had this in mind. I went there to take the shot, got stopped, and then knew, okay, I know what I want to do.
That's a timeless image. That's really...
I love it. It's one of my absolute favorites.
Oh, Joburg.
Something.
And you got the light so symmetrically correct there. How did you do that?
It's the most bizarre, absolute bizarre thing that happened this day. So, you know Dennis, the Truss, a friend of mine called Dennis.
Yes.
So Dennis loves doing videography with his drone. Absolutely loves it. So he'll go to events like Munga and so on and video the guys with these. So he kept nagging me to go into town so we could see that road that had blown up with a gas explosion. We got into town and there was just no ways we're going to see it or take photos because it's covered. So he was like, listen, let's just drive around and do what we can do and see what we can do. And this is an observatory.
Yes, on the far side, I know it, yeah.
This field over here is where they used to have the people come and pray. That's now been bought out, it's closed. And we stood there on this like deserted road, and I launched my drone. Dennis was going bonkers. He was flying all over the place. And these crepuscular rays, they call crepuscular rays, they started appearing. And that's how they fell. And I thought, this is it. That is amazing. But I don't want just this. I want the entire city. So I framed up the image first, then hooked over to the left and took 7 frames. Each one of them exposed. So I would take the first one, expose it. Second one, expose it. Third. And that's how I eventually got the detail on the rays throughout the image. So if you get your exposure just right, you bring out the detail in the light. And so this is a 7 image that I eventually made a panorama of and then just processed to my liking.
Just to be clear, this is 7 different pictures
7
put in one.
in one.
Wow, beautiful.
There's so much that one can do with the equipment we have available today. It's incredible.
Another stunningly colorful masterpiece here. Where is this, Anton?
That's Golden Gate, and this is called the Brandwag Buttress. So when I was in school, high school, I spent my last 2 years of school in Bethlehem, and you go to school camps, you go to Golden Gate. And I got totally besotted with this rock. So when my family wanted to go on holiday, they love the coast, I love the mountains. I eventually coaxed them into going to Golden Gate. And we had gone there since a good couple of times. And this is the Brandwag Hotel that you see down in the valley there. And this was about the third time we were there, and I went to go and take photographs and have a look. And on this particular day, so this image means a lot to me for several reasons. On this particular day, we got there and we took, me and my son took some photographs walking at the top. So it's very flat over the top. So you got like 360-degree views almost of going towards Harry Smith, back towards Clarence, back towards Ferrisburg. And it started getting dark, but I really wanted the light, and I could see that the light was going to be spectacular. And I noticed how the light was breaking through the clouds, creating these patches in the valley. And we walked down, and the light had just fallen into the valley there and onto this rock here. And I put my tripod down, and I thought, this is it. It's about a 3-minute shot. I'd quickly figured out I'm going to do 3 minutes. And I said to my son, just sit behind me, because I wanted movement in the cloud. And the thing with a long exposure like this, you're not just getting the movement, you're also capturing the different light that happens over the 3-minute period. Yeah. So at sunset, over 3 minutes, you'd be absolutely shocked to see how many palettes of orange and red you get. It's unbelievable. Wow. And I took the shot, and processing obviously to my liking. I wanted to have a certain vivid feel. And we were talking about that earlier. So people say, why do you process the way you do? Because when I stood there, all my senses were working, right? I could smell, I could see. Great. I want to bring that into my image. How do I do that?
See, so that makes all the sense in how you edit.
Yes.
And your signature is also the way you treat the sky with the longer exposure. You check where the clouds are moving. And
always. And I look at the clouds and see which way the wind's blowing them. Because it can become a total mess if you don't look at it proper. And then we got back to the hotel, and then my wife told me that Barry had just been killed there.
Oh, that day.
So that was that day, yeah.
Phenomenal image.
Wow.
Thank you.
Another beautiful image. Is this also Joburg, Anton?
That is Joburg,
Whereabout is this one?
So interestingly enough, the one that you saw earlier with the taxi, this is behind it.
Okay.
It's exactly behind it.
Can I tell you guys a crazy story, actually? I just remembered. I also have a picture in this this spot here specifically, and here by this road, which I shot last year. But
so you need to bring it so we can show it on the show.
See it, yes, absolutely.
And again, you caught the sun in the exact spot you wanted, the light coming through, some blue sky coming through there.
Also the colors on the windows.
Yes.
So these windows are they've got like a metal tint to them. It almost looks, you can't look through. They're not normal glass windows. So they capture whatever color gets thrown at them.
Whatever's behind you, they're capturing. You see?
Wow.
Beautiful.
So interestingly enough with this shot is that it was a Photographic Society of South Africa had a congress called City Photography. So they brought Barry and Exparello from the States over here. They had Urbi Uber also, which was awesome to meet. Urbi. Yeah. They had Dale Udelman, very interesting guy. Very interesting guy. You could sit for hours and listen to his creative process. And it was my day that I had done my talk, and I got asked to take all the delegates into town. And I took them into town, and this was that particular day. And they were all shooting in this direction. And I actually looked around just to see that everybody was with. And I saw this scene, and I thought, this is insane. And then I saw this guy walking with his bags. So when I framed the shot, he was still on the sidewalk, walking across. And at this stage, I'd already started playing with putting people into my images, but not like you would get in regular street photography, where the idea with this, and I got so excited when I eventually captured it, because it's another concept that I had in my mind, is to capture the magnificence of these structures next to us as human beings. You can see how insignificant that person is.
That sense of scale.
That sense of scale.
Yeah.
And when you do this on print, so this, somewhere in town, somebody has got an AO print of this, I think in the Stadeford's building. When you see that print and you see that guy walking across the road, it like literally just knocks you.
Do you know what music I'm hearing when I look at this? Inception.
Most definitely, eh? Most definitely.
let's touch on your sales. How do you sell your images? And what is your recommendation for people out there who are thinking of selling their images as artworks?
So my advice would definitely be if you're planning on making a living off it, find something else to do.
100%.
Find something else to do. Unlike a wedding photographer or what you've been doing as a career.
No, find something else.
Find something else to do. But where you can have a slightly more steady income. A landscape photographer does not have that luck, you know.
Yeah.
And for me, I've always done the images as, to me, art for myself. And then I realized, but these can be put onto prints. And they will look good in somebody's house. So I don't really advertise them anywhere, but I'd get people call me to ask for prints. Or like Orco, for example, for 4 years in a row, they bought images from me for their website. So, you know, you create, but I don't create with the intention of making money out of it. I create for myself, and the images within themselves then end up selling.
I think that's why they sell well, because you are doing it with the passion first.
Yes.
Not with the intention, oh, will this sell? Which I find is happening in the music industry a lot.
Absolutely.
People write tunes to sell, not what they feel.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, so this image was just great. I mean, and like, you know, funny enough with a shot like this, you can see the lights behind. So I'm not a big fan of a very flat image because I like that contrast of light. But there was no contrast of light except the reflections in the windows of what was coming from behind. So on this particular shot, I did overexpose. So I exposed for the darker parts of the building, but knowing how much I could play with the highlights. And thank heavens that there was enough cloud in the sky and that enough cloud over here creating the rays to pop out quite nicely. Had it not been for that cloud and that cloud cover, it would have been an exposure nightmare, if I have to say that. Like I was saying earlier, it creates an incredible scrim. You know, as you know,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if you remember Aubrey that used to shoot for Tread magazine years ago.
Yes, I do, yes.
He used to shoot for SA Illustrated, and he would tell me that if they photograph a girl on the beach, they would have 7, 8 people walking around with scrims,
Yeah.
lights. This is where you think you got a lot of light. They're adding huge amounts of light and shade and. You know, so for me, the clouds really bring down that harsh light.
Yeah.
And when you have cloud that brings down that harsh light, you can push your exposure on the foreground a little bit.
Tell me a little bit about the dynamic range on your Fuji sensors.
So they're incredible. I mean, you know, the human eye, I think, has got a dynamic range of 22, 24, somewhere around there.
Yeah, I think so.
The GFX, they say, has got a dynamic range of about 18. So I've shot with the GFX, which is a medium format sensor, and with all the X series cameras, and they're all capable, incredibly capable. You know, as the megapixels pick up, it just means that you can crop a bit more, but from that X100 right through to their latest cameras, the dynamic range that they capture is just so great. So people ask, what is dynamic range? They've heard the term HDR. HDR is high dynamic range. So if you walk into, let's say you walk out of a bright room into a dark room, immediately everything is dark, right? Stay there for about 5-10 seconds and you start seeing things in the dark that you never saw when you walked in, because your eyes adapt, because your eyes have a fantastic dynamic range to discern between light and shadows and dark. So when you see a scene that looks beautiful, like especially landscape, like a city, a seascape or whatever, when you see a scene that looks beautiful, you think, oh, I want to capture that. And you take the photo and nothing looks good because the sky is blown out, or you can't see the foreground, or the foreground is quite detailed and the sky is just white.
Yeah.
All the blue, all the colors are gone. It's because the camera of your phone can't capture that dynamic range that the eye can capture.
The new iPhones are shooting with dynamic range.
Much better, eh?
But they're stacking.
They're stacking,
They
yes.
shoot multiple. And then, you know, someone will come and shoot a scene with their iPhone and say, but why can't you get it like this on your normal film camera? You know?
Not the same.
So how HDR actually works, the stacking that Dimitri is talking about, you'll expose 4 or 5 images, 5 shots. Same shot, on a tripod, you'll expose them all, right? So you'll expose for the foreground, you'll expose for the mids, the highlights, the shadows, and each one of those you get the perfect exposure, and then you go stack them afterwards. And it'll bring out what they call high dynamic range. I do one image. I'm not an HDR fan. So a lot of people say, do you shoot HDR? No.
No.
You'll notice a lot of real estate photos are HDR.
Yes.
And they look like embossed false images, and they look so false. Do you know what I'm saying when I say embossed? It looks like the colors have faded in the wrong areas, and it's just
so what that does, that HDR, that algorithm, it tone maps the image.
Yeah.
So it maps every single color and brings it all into one, which is not what you get from a photograph. You don't get that tone mapping. You know, you got dark there, you got detail there, you've got light over there. I mean, you got to bring all that into one image. And with one shot, I find it's so much easier to do. So I know exactly by how much I can underexpose, lift the shadows in post-processing without getting too much noise, without losing detail, and without it looking stupid or dumb, and bring down the highlights.
And that takes a lot of time to know what you want.
Wow.
Many years of...
It's practice, but the nice thing is once you've done all that practice, then it's easy. You know, Tim Willman and myself went out into Braamfontein the one time, and I took him to the Mandela Bridge, and I said to him, Tim, I just want to get a shot here quickly. And he was standing and standing. And I stood there waiting for him. He said, are you done? I said, yeah. How? I said, I knew exactly what I wanted. You know, and he said, see, that's practice. So with him with the skateboarding, I would be sitting there for minutes and minutes on end. What am I going? For him, he knows. He knows where he wants to be, what he wants to do. And that's the importance.
I've always said the picture first has to happen in here, and then you use your tool to bring that image out.
Yeah.
Oh,
The
yes.
camera is our tool,
Oh, yes. Most definitely.
and that's what you do.
Yeah.
Before we
Beautiful.
sign off, well, we could talk for days. Yeah? Any interesting new projects that are coming up that you're working on?
So I've been working on my black and whites quite a bit, and color grading within black and white, which is what a lot of people don't know of. So they'll take an image, they'll put it into Lightroom, or if it's from their phone, they'll just go black and white. And it gives that real harsh digital feel to it. I like to add color grading to what I feel. And like I did an image of the old Standard Bank building the other day with Annan House next to it. And with that, I put like a yellow grade over it, like a very slight yellow grade. So it looks more nostalgic than what it should be, and it gives it more of a film feel. Gives it a bit more of a grain, more of a natural feel. So my main project in the last sort of year has been portraits of buildings, and I actually want to go out and do a lot more of that, because ultimately what I'd like to do, before it all goes to a complete disaster, is capture these buildings and get them into a book.
I think you've already captured a lot that has changed since you
Yes.
started. Quick question. For our viewers that are interested in joining you and us on a walk, would you
Yes.
be interested in
Oh,
doing something?
absolutely, yeah.
What do you think, Bob?
It's a great idea.
I think it
Wow.
would be awesome. Well, it's been a pleasure having you here,
Thank
Anton.
you.
I'm
Thank
sure
you.
we'll have you on again.
Absolutely.
And we'll discuss
I'm
the
always-
photo walks.
Yeah.
Bob, anything else you want to ask?
No, actually, I'll save it for the photo walk.
Okay. Thanks for joining
you,
us.
guys.
Thanks for joining us today. And thank you to Anton again.
Thank you.
A big thank you to Cameras for their support. And we hope to see you next time.